Alright, metalheads, you're listening to Metal Verbalizer podcast. Today we're going to talk about the up-and-coming band The Big Deal. The Big Deal debuted with 3 singles in 2021, so this is a band that is really fresh and new, and possibly one of the absolute newest bands that we have talked about on this podcast so far. A guitarist and composer and producer called Serjan, I'm a little bit unsure about the name, but Serjan or something like that, together with the singer and pianist Navina. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering these names totally, but those two were starting to work on a few demos together with the drummer Marco, and this was where the band started to take a little bit of shape, because one cool thing with this band is that it is fronted by 2 females. When working on some of the ideas for the music, he thought it would be interesting to include the fantastic singer Anna's vocals together with Navina's. Or Navina, I don't know. This was a sound that the band really liked, actually. And later, when their demos were finished, they got to present it to the label Frontiers Music. This actually got the band signed. And getting the band signed this fast in the band's journey is just hats off from me, at least. This is something that is a job very, very well done. At least from my side. To complete the lineup, they brought in the bass player Alessandro. Serjan and Marco has actually been bandmates since earlier in a Serbian prog metal band called Elogia, something like that. Serjan actually has quite a bit of experience when it comes to the industry, both on stage and in the studio. He has played on many festivals actually and collaborated with people like Tim the Ripper Owens. And if you don't know who Tim Ripper Owens is, one of the biggest things that he is famous for was replacing Rob Halford in Judas Priest for a while. I think it was back in the 90s. I don't know exactly when the band was started, but I assume that it was sometime in 2021. Therefore, the band has, not as of yet, released a lot of music, but we do actually have some unique singles that do not appear on the album, and also an album that the band released this year in 2022. So we have a smoking fresh album. So we're going to take a look at that in a bit. But let's take a closer look at the music that the band has released in 2021. The first single that they released was a cover of Europe's hit Rock the Night. And that's a song that pretty much everybody in this genre of music has heard before. And this is a powerful, high-gain, high-intensity version. Having Navina's and Anna's vocals together modernizes the song and gives it another type of intensity. And I just love this cover. It's great. You just have to have a listen. After that, they released another cover. And this time they were covering Amaranth by Nightwish. And we can pretty clearly hear that it is a song by Nightwish, obviously, since it is a song by Nightwish. But in this song, you really start hear the prog metal sound from the band, and especially when it comes to the guitar and synth. But that's pretty clearly since I think it was Serjan and Serjan and Marco were in some kind of prog metal lineup earlier. But enough about that. With the next single that they released, we can hear how it would have sounded if ABBA, the Swedish pop group, would have been sounding if they were a metal band. And this time the band is covering Gimme 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 by ABBA. This is a song that really fits in the metal version. And this is something that I personally really like. when bands decide to do covers of old pop songs and remake them into a really heavy metal song. This is something that really works because 80s and 90s pop was created with such a good groove. But then there, of course, are really good pop songs that have been made today as well that work amazingly as a metal song. And basically, if the original song has a good groove and is well written, it is going to most likely be an awesome metal song. And I guess that does not only work for metal. I guess that you could probably turn a song into any genre that you want in that case, if it is well written and have a groove and that. I think it's easier to make a new genre for a song if the groove is there, if you know what I mean. But yeah, time fly when you have fun. But now we have reached actually 2022, and we're going to start with a few singles actually that the band has released. The first one released was their song Never Say Never. This is a song with fast riffing, harmonizing vocals between the two singers, and when it comes to genre, it feels like it is a mix between prog and classic heavy metal and power metal. The second one released is called Sensational. This one starts off with some 80s synths and some melodic guitar riffing before we go into the chugging verse. And then we of course have the arena-sized chorus. I can't stop thinking about Karate Kid for some reason when I hear these synths. I get a little bit of that vibe, but it's cool. Next one, and the last one of the singles, is called Top Heaven. Here you go more towards the 80s type of metal, and it starts off with some 80s guitar trickery, and then it comes with the same vibe, which I personally really like, and then we also get a synth solo, which sort of give the song a little bit of a prog spice, because I don't know, when it comes to those synthesizer solos, then I think it goes more towards prog metal and that sort of genre. But that's not bad. It gives the song an interesting touch in my case, according to me at least. But this was the 3 singles that the band had released. But that's not all, because the band, as I mentioned, has actually released a full-length album, and the name is a little bit of a fun one, and maybe even a smart one, because since this is the band's first ever full-length album, they've decided to call it First Bite. And this tells me that at least there is a lot more to come from this band. And among the 11 songs of absolute awesomeness, we of course have the 3 singles that I've mentioned so far. But I think we should talk a little bit about a couple of the other songs as well, because I think it's really good ones. And one song on the album is called I Need You Here Tonight. This song is interesting because we again have the 80s synths, but it's mixed with a more modern heavy metal, which gives it a quite interesting sound, and I really like it. Another great one is called Rebel Lady. Once again, we got the 80s synths that I love with some tight riffing. And this is one song in the bunch that might be a little bit slower than the rest, but I don't think that this song would have worked as well in a higher tempo. So I think it was a great one, great call of the band to bring down the tempo a little bit. It makes it really heavy. Fallen is also a song that we find on this album. This one made me stop and think for a second, because this one followed the band's sound, but it stands out in a weird way, which I can't really put my finger on it. I think it is something in the rhythm, but I can't really, like I said, put my finger on it. So it's hard to say what it is to make it different. But I really like this one as well. This was a few of the songs from the album that I picked out, right? But there are more songs for you to check out, absolutely. And as a first full length, according to me, it is a crazy good one. But I mean, we have some experience with Serjan and I think it was Marco. They have some experience with studio and that sort of stuff earlier. So I think that helps in this case. And the first song I really heard with the band was Sensational, and the song might actually be sensational. I honestly thought that the band was a lot bigger than they actually are. So when I saw that the band was within the range of the bands that we are usually talking about here on the podcast, I just felt like I had to make this episode. Because we have a little bit of a range that we look at when it comes to monthly listeners and that sort of stuff to sort of get some kind of measurement on how large and popular the band is. And that's one of the things that we check when we pick out a band to talk about. So I were really happy when I saw that this band was a little bit lower there, so I could make an episode about them, because this is a great band and I want them to become larger. Fun thing is that it seems like the band is out on tour right now. About 6 days ago, according to their social media, they played in Greece, and not long ago they were in Norway actually, and did some kind of interview and that sort of stuff. I don't really know if they played, but possibly. This band has obviously taken classic heavy metal, prog metal, and power metal and made it into one single sound. I don't think I really can put one genre on the band. That wouldn't really be appropriate. And obviously it is a crazy heavy sound. I personally hope that this band is going to keep the grind going, because I think that these guys could play at any festival like Wacken, Woodstock, or Sweden Rock, and for sure this band's music would fit in any stadium, maybe even near you. And actually, when we talk about Woodstock, is Woodstock really a thing anymore? I don't feel like you hear much about Woodstock. Nowadays, it's a lot of talk about Wacken. Over here in Sweden, there is a lot of talk about Sweden Rock here and there. But I don't really think that we hear much about Wacken anymore, because that was quite a large, or not Wacken, Woodstock. We don't hear much about Woodstock anymore. And that was quite a large festival, as I understand it. But I don't know. Maybe you can hit us up on social media and tell us about it. If you're able to catch this band on the road, make sure to go and see them. Because the band The Big Deal is about to become a big deal. I hope. And I think that might be a good time to wrap things up here, actually. If this band is something that interests you, which it should, make sure to have a listen to their music and check out their music videos as well that they have put out. Because a few of their covers there, with the ABBA cover and over there, some of those songs they have music videos, and a few of their own songs as well. So check those out, and you won't be disappointed. I can promise you that. But also make sure to follow them on their social media, where you can be updated on the latest news from them. And as I've talked about in previous episodes, this is one of the easiest and cheapest ways to absolutely support the bands and help them to reach out. And obviously, if you like what we are doing here on Metal Verbalizers, make sure to follow our social medias as well. There you can always get updates about what we're going to talk about. And also you can tell us about your favorite band within the range that we usually talk about. If you have a small band that you know, or maybe you're playing a small band, hit us up. Maybe we can talk about your band. We're happily to check your music out. Maybe we're not going to make an episode about you now, but in the future we absolutely can make an episode about you. And also on our social medias, you can be updated on which band we're going to be talking about next, as I said. But also, sometimes we talk with the bands as well in interviews. And sometimes they come back on the podcast and tell us stories about what has happened on the road. And that is one of my favorite concepts that we have over here right now. So that is something that you want to check out. And, well, that's all from me. Thanks for listening. I've been Erik, and you've been listening to Metal Verbalizer Podcast. Have a good one.